Welcome to another edition of Midnight Cable. I'm Giman.
And I'm Brandon. And in this show, we talk about anime that we have watched recently, both new and old.
That's right. This week we...
What seems to be the problem, Giman?
Well, this week it was not fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, that other anime we saw and that one movie we saw were really fun, but this first anime, there are not enough words to describe how bad it was. But let's get back on track first.
Yes, the first anime that we saw this week was Japan Sing 2020. This is the second collaborative work between Masaki Yuasa, a very critical acclaimed director, and Science Saru after Devilman Crybaby. I think this is perhaps one of Netflix's biggest stinkers since making Saint Seiya.
Yeah, but the other anime we saw was School Life, a delightful slice of life story about cute girls doing cute things, learning about life by going to school and, just enjoying life to the fullest, a truly happy story. But unfortunately, that will have to wait as we first dig deep into what an epic disaster, no pun intended, Japan Sings 2020 really is. Japan Sings 2020 is a complete disaster. It's a story about disaster ravaging entire Japan after 2020 Olympics, which threatens to consume the entire continent. The show focuses on a group of survivors, the main focus being a family of four. Mother, Marimuto, a former Philippine pro swimmer. Father, Koshiro Muto, a Japanese construction worker. Daughter, Ayumu Muto, an aspiring future Olympic runner. And a sassy son, Go Muto, a Western weeaboo who wants to be an esports pro player one day. They journey across Japan as they come across other survivors, as they desperately try to evacuate from the country and survive the impending extinction event not just for Japan, but for our intelligence. So, Brandon, what did you... You know what? No.
Okay.
I'm not doing this. Usually I try to be, really peppy and keep up the spirits of, animes we watch by, trying to be positive. But there's nothing positive about this. So, you know what? I'm just gonna cut the bullshit and, ask you straight. How crap do you think this anime is?
I think it would be disingenuous that we would say that we didn't have fun while watching this anime. There are some certain scenes in it that make us laugh for 30 minutes straight.
Yeah, but it was all unintentional and not like the anime attempted to do that, so it's kind of meaningless, don't you think?
Yeah, aside from those moments, I think overall in general, this is a very bad anime. It felt rushed when it comes to the character. It felt, really messy when it comes to the visuals and the animation. And there's an overall tonal depth when it comes to, the musics and how the themes and everything else with the stories, interact with each other. Overall, a very, underwhelming anime, I would say, at least.
As for me, I kind of both expected and didn't expect much. I didn't expect much due to the fact that I already knew how bad this was going to be due to many people talking bad about it. But I kind of held hope that it would at least have some good things about it. After all, it was advertised that it was by Masaki Yuasa, the director of Devilman Crybaby, which we really enjoyed, but the end result is anything but satisfying.
This kind of remind me of this, Aldona Zero situation, an anime that we also watched in the past. It is advertised as being booked and written by, Gen Urobuchi, acclaimed, writer of, Machika Motoka and, Fake Zero. But in reality, he was only there for 2 or 3 episodes, reading the story of it and some tiny tidbit. This anime is also the same, even though, it has on the cover,
from the creative visionary director Masaki Yuasa, who brought you, such classic as Ping Pong, the animation, and Devilman Crybaby.
Came the long-awaited, anime adaptation of this one random novel from the 70s that no one cared about. Even though it's trying to reel you in, and I think a lot of people did actually get reeled in starting from the trailer on YouTube and how, it has the Masaki Yuasa name on it. I think he was only involved in this anime for the first 2 episodes, and the rest is clearly being made by someone else, like Pong Yang-ho, who I won't bother pronounce his name correctly, but we'll talk more about that when it comes to talking about the animation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem this anime has is that it's trying to be both a survival story and a political commentary, just like how the original book from the 70s was. But it ends up, completely undermining itself because we happen to discover something that not many seem to have actually bothered to look into, but we'll reveal that soon enough.
But for now, let's just talk about the character of the show.
Yeah, characters. Characters! Well, for a story about survival, the main cast of this show don't really have any real characters. I mean, they are catalysts. I mean, sure, some of them have personalities, but it still feels a bit weird to even call them characters, since they're just there to drive the plot along. I mean, what did you think about the family?
There was nothing memorable about any of these characters, specifically the nuclear family that's supposed to be the central focus of the show. You have the emotional daughter who's always hyperactive and trying to survive. You have this e-boy, e-sport Fortnite gamers who
sassy black kid.
Yeah, who constantly shout out English, who his entire existence is just English, because he's only here in the show just to shout English, like what? Excuse me? Something like that, and very, not memorable at all. And then you have the dad, this hyperactive family man who tried to head first into action. Very explosive character. He was quite memorable.
Yeah, he played a really large role in this.
Yeah. and then you have the mom. I think she's pretty much the female version of the dad, so not much to say about her.
Other than the fact that she fills the quota of a multicultural family, to sell this to Netflix audience.
Yes, and the survivor, I think I cannot say anything good or anything stand out about them. Like, they just fit this stereotype that here's this best friend of the daughter, this best friend girl who know martial art, and then there's this one emo senpai who suddenly, after eating some mushroom or weed in the episode 5, suddenly, underwent character development, and then, became a totally different character, for the rest of the show.
Too bad it doesn't pay off until the second last episode.
Yes.
Which also involves, him, being really important character, just like the dad.
What other character do you think is worth talking about, Giman?
Well, what? Did you already forgot about, old man, who kind of reminds me of that guy from Inuyashiki, and of course, Kite, that weird Estonian YouTuber who seems to always excel at everything that he's doing.
Yeah, the old man, I think we save about him later. There's one really amazing scene with him in particular that I want to talk about. As for Kite, I think he's the only character in this show that has some semblance of a character personality. A very charismatic, leader type character. Certain point in the show, it kind of make me feel like he's supposed to be the main protagonist, because, he can do everything so good, and, he's the one, driving the show plot forward.
Or do you mean that he's like Gary Stu of this show?
Yes. And then there's also the daughter. There are some emotional conflicts. There are some scenes with her where she expressed emotion, but that's just basic bare bone emotion that we've seen many times before, and other show that has done way better.
Yeah, Although the only other characters that are worth talking about, which actually we bring up more in detail later, is this guy who is introduced in the middle of the show called Onodera Toshio, I think he was. This man who is paraplegic, who can only blink with his eyes and click in his finger. His only purpose in the show is to kind of steer the direction of the show from a survival story into a Save the Japan kind of plot.
Yeah, like you would think with such a bland and uninteresting cast of character, and I didn't even went deep into their character design, because basically every single character looks like realistic human being. There's no weird color hair except Kite, so he's the only one that stand out when it comes to character design. But I digress. The show tried to introduce a backstory to these characters, like how they used to be before the disaster happened. And of course, this being a disaster show, of course some of these characters will end up dying. The problem with these characters is that when they die, I don't care about any of them. Like they just die randomly because of some shock value. Oh my god, here's some gory death happening on the screen, and then literally afterward, after they die, there is backstory about them that you just appear on the screen like it was some casual conversation, just like that.
Well, either that, or it's not just that it's sort of a narration that they say in their dying moments. It's that some of them even say that the character's face, like in episode 6, where that esports boy, it's it's trying to save this one stocky guy who was selling soup or some food to everyone else. He's just telling him to run away from the disaster, and he's saying that I was a sumo wrestler, who fixed matches. This is what I deserve. Just save yourself. Leave me here to die by being crushed by this boulder. The fact that he just says it casually that this is what I deserve because of this. I mean, I know that I made a joke about this with listeners, with characters saying backstory, but I think even that, had some subtlety to this.
Yeah, like
I really should have used that joke here.
Like, are we supposed to care about these characters at all? Like, are we supposed to feel for them when they die? No, there was nothing. And you know why? Because of the goddamn story of this anime, and because the story is so bad. There was such a huge tonal shift in, tone and theme that it makes us really don't care about these characters at all. And I think it's time to, go deep into that. Or I would rather say roast it.
Yeah, or rant, like rant roast. Story! So most episodes have an ongoing plot where, obviously, after all, it's a disaster, so they have to run away. It's not like this show has a, sort of a filler arc, but actually there is, like between episodes 4 and 6, there is this weird side plot with this cult that has this society there, and the characters spend like 3 episodes there where the story grinds completely to a halt, and I can't really wrap my head around that. What exactly was the point of that section of the story?
Like literally as soon as Kite joined the ensemble of the cast, I think that the story is completely filler and unnecessary. So like basically you can just watch the first 3 episodes and then the last 2, and then you'll just be fine without seeing whatever happened in between. It feels like it was half-baked. The story wasn't thought out that well, and there was a lot of tonal shift in the story.
Yeah, the first half of this story, like I alluded to, was about survival, and I think the first 2 episodes are probably the best in the show, considering that it actually made us feel something. After all, in second episode, the father who is painted out to be this sort of a leading man dies, when he's digging this bomb. And while, now that I think about it, you say that he had a rather explosive personality. That's a bit offensive. But his death was actually the only one that kind of made me feel. Sure, it was gruesome, but the fact that, it was kind of forewarned before, and the way music plays and that sort of narration, that was actually the only scene that made me feel something. But everything else after that, feels like so out of the left field that I just don't feel anything. But the worst part is the fact that during the second half, the show abandons the whole individual survivor story into that because when after Kite and this Onodera guy shows up, it suddenly turns into, okay, let's go to this location so we can save Japan instead of, focusing on our survival. I like that.
Yeah, and it ends with this really jarring 20-minute montage with, seeing of dead people and seeing of people being happy together.
Yeah, but we get to that scene.
Yeah, and it tries to establish this, really contrived and also, over generic, narration about, the unity of people, or how racism is bad, and how different character ethnicities, all pour together, and trying to, make us love Japan, nationalism themes and stuff. It was.
Is that what it was trying to do? I mean, didn't that bug Estonian lover boy, constantly say that, I don't want to live in Japan, it has earthquakes, I hate it. I mean, does the anime love Japan or hate it? I can't.
Yeah, it's so confused, and I think it's trying to establish to us a serious story here, or at least I think it tried. But then but there's that one scene in particular that made me realize oh my god, this is not a serious anime at all, and that is that scene with that old man that I alluded to earlier.
Yeah, I mean, tell us a story about people trying to survive and trying to salvage what little they have left, and trying to make the best out of bad situation. Can you take that kind of story seriously when you have a scene like this?
Jesus, I don't understand. What was the point of having a scene like that, in this story, in this serious survival story?
Yeah, although I do have to admit, it was so unintentionally hilarious that was one of the scenes that unintentionally made me feel something, because I mean, I could understand if it was some part of comedy or some sort of wacky action scene, but the fact that we're supposed to take this seriously, with these serious character designs and human characters, and then you have a sort of a physics-defying feature like that, what?
The way character handle emotion and getting over people dying is also unrealistic, and just play for fun, and there's a lot of tonal depth in it. I mean, after the father death, I can give it credit. The daughter tried to be sad. At least she has this ongoing sadness. This emotional outburst. But the rest of the characters who died, there was so huge tonal depth when it comes to the death scene and how people deal with it. For example, I would say literally after 3 minutes after the mom died. Oh, spoiler.
Don't you mean the next episode?
Yeah, literally the next episode, 3 minutes in after the moms died, they just have a rap battle. Think about it. A person just died and they have a rap battle.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the point of the fact that they're just trying to cheer, everyone up. But come on, is that really, the fact that they do it literally at the beginning of the next episode, and instead of letting us sink in? I mean, let's take an example of death affecting in the next episode, in Trigun, when anytime Vash lost something or was forced to kill Legato, the next episode he was so broken up about it, and so were other characters, and such a deep sad music like that. Now imagine if you had upbeat music like this.
Let's go crazy!
and then a rap battle.
Yeah, and then then that somehow we're supposed to take that seriously, or that life goes on, so let's have a rap battle.
I mean, it's this anime try to insult the viewer IQ so much that I don't think there's much to even talk about the story any further. That this is just a dumb story and a dumb anime.
Yeah, in fact. So we're not gonna be even talking about the story. We're soon gonna be talking about everything stupid about this. But before we get to that, let's first talk about other things this show has: music and animation.
Yes.
Music and animation. When it comes to music, it might actually be one of the only good things about this show. After all, it is composed by Kensuke Oshio, also known as A-Rap. But on the other hand, his style really doesn't fit a story like this. I mean, it kind of feels like some recycled or unused soundtrack from Devilman Crybaby that they used, and it just doesn't work. I mean, besides that, besides background music, the opening works really well. Surprisingly, there's no ending to this, since there's just black credits and some random music every now and then. But the opening was actually fit a story like this, with these warm colors, this lack of drawn lines and sort of a calming tone, and it kind of has this good contrast with the horrors that the characters should face. But on the other hand, the fact that we don't feel anything about these characters, anything that happens, it's kind of meaningless. But the point is that it is appropriate, at least, for a story like this.
Yeah, I agree.
I understand that you had a lot to say about when it comes to animation, so could you elaborate that a bit further?
Okay, well, before we started, a little bit of pretext. I'm gonna show you a clip from Ping Pong, the animation. I've seen that anime before, but I think you didn't.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, the only work by Masaki Yusa was, Devilman Crybaby, so this is like the second anime I've seen from him. What about Ping Pong, the animation?
Well, I will show you this clip, and I will then later ask you what you feel about it, so...
Okay, let's take a look.
要让你知道自己是多么的弱小，多么的无能。
Okay, so now that you've seen the clip, I'm gonna ask you one simple question. What do you feel about the visuals and the animation of this clip that you just saw?
Well, I guess if I were to sum up, I think the visuals were overly simplistic, but the animation was surprisingly detailed, that even with the simplistic character designs, they still make the movement of characters and action on the screen work really well.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, bingo, you got it. And this is what so many people get wrong when it comes to watching an anime. That they sometimes mistaken visuals for animation. There are actually two types of anime. The one that is all about visuals, the background, and visual effects, and how good the character looks, and overall feel amazing art style. These generally doesn't have as impressive animation, or sometimes even don't even have much animation at all. Example I can give is Violet Evergarden.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. But then you can see that these characters just walk around, barely do anything impressive when it comes to animation. And the other type of anime is the one like this, or Ping Pong the animation, or Devilman Crybaby, where visual can look like very simplistic, look like a 5 years old draw it, but animation, oh my god, so breathtaking, so good. I think this anime is trying to capture the same spirit and feel that Devilman Crybaby and Ping Pong the animation achieve. It does have certain impressive animation at some point. I will put some clip on the screen here while I talk. Some animation looks good, some look decent. Like, I mean, you can tell that certain scene was directed by Masaki Yuasa. There are also some impressive visual as well in the first 2 episodes. And then also one in the near the end of episode 8.
Yeah, and I think, in the first 2 episodes, they're attempted to make the characters look like human, realistic, with proportions and, the way they move, kind of adds the realism, to this. But like we already know, it kind of abandons that it kind of gets progressively worse.
I'm really biased when it comes to anime art style. I only generally enjoy anime that has really good art style. So the the visual is so freaking bad. Like at some time, like the character model, they look like sometimes they look like they have like a turd neck.
Yeah. Like in that one scene that the mother has this sort of was it like double or triple chin that she looks like a gorilla.
Yeah, like they don't even look half human at all. There are scenes where the background looks so freaking bad. Like you can see an overuse of 3D CGI, And Science Saru isn't a studio that, is known for their 3D animation. They are known for 2D hand-drawn animation. And, some of these scenes just look so rushed, so ugly, so messy. And then there's that one particular scene I'm gonna put on the screen here. The scene where the daughter is crying at the end of the anime.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, because, she just survived everything. Look at her face here. Like, what can you tell? Can you really just tell me honestly that this looks like a human face? Like, come on, she looks like a mongoloid gorilla hybrid. I mean, look at her face. Like,
yeah, she looks like that painting by Edvard Munch, Scream. Like all mouth open like that.
Yeah, like, I mean, what's the point? Like, usually when you have bad visual like this, you should have like some good animation to compensate, right? What was the animation in that scene? She's just bawling her heart out. Like, why does it feel necessary to have her face look like that? It just, feel like, a complete amateur just, directed this scene. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat saying this. I think that, even with the impressive animation, this anime still looks, very crappy, and nothing can fix it. Like, I mean, yeah, sure, some people who is, more keen about good animation can, come here and say, but Brendan, you're just an asshole, look at how impressive that, 360 degree speed that old man did, when he 360 no scope those guys with the focus. Oh my god, slow down those animation frame by frame. Oh, you can see that, impressive in between animation.
Yeah, the attention to detail.
Oh my god, so amazing. And to that, I would say, I invited you to choke on my Vietnamese rice bowl. because when you have amazing animation, and I don't think that it was even a good animation.
But even if it was,
it had to fit the theme or the atmosphere of the story, and what the hell is going on with the story. What was that whole scene about? Like, he just randomly do a 360 no scope out of nowhere.
Yeah, which kind of defies the laws of physics, and that's not the only ridiculous moment. I mean, sure, you could argue that with that scene that it didn't really fit with the series survival story, and when it comes to deaths, that could actually fit, and at least if the animation was good, that could bring up some emotional impact. But then we have a scene like this. And a kid, does this, really stupid looking death where a boulder hits him in the head. And I mean, was that supposed to be, really jarring, some grisly? Because to me it looked like, I don't know how to describe it. It's
but Giman, you're an asshole. Like, if you slow down the keyframe of that, you can see,
Shut the f*** up.
You can see the key in between frames where his neck just bent like that. It was so amazing. Like, I mean, come on. Like, yes, we know, Science Saru animation is really amazing, but, this is not one of those, good Science Saru work. And this is like, I think, the worst animation that they have done so far in their, career. Like, even, like, I mean, I haven't watched that, Keep Your Hand Off Eizouken anime, but I'm willing to bet top money that it's way better than this.
Yeah, we might have to talk about that sometime, but here's the real question. Is the animation bad because, it just doesn't fit the story, or was it bad to begin with? Or is it perhaps both, meaning it doesn't fit anywhere?
That's the question that we never gonna find an answer, because Masaki Yuasa left the studio. So
yeah, I wonder what his contribution to this anime was in the first place. Like that. Okay, can you sneeze in this paper napkin, and we try to draw things inspiration from it.
Yeah, that, as I alluded to, that Pong Yang Ho. If I remember correctly, he was an intern for Science Saru. He was one of the guys who make those in-between animation for episode 8 of Ping Pong, the animation. He was just a no-name intern. And for a directorial debut, I think, dude, you should just go back and study your animation and directing skill, because this is under standard.
Yeah, I mean, it's insulting that the fact that they had to promote this anime with Masaki Yusa's name, even though this doesn't even feel like it's worth, well, aside from those first 2 episodes, but
let's not beat the dead horse anymore. Let's talk about the dumb shit.
Yeah, because there's a lot. We might have mentioned a few of the stupid moments, like the old man with the wheelchair, or the boy getting his head crushed, but that was merely the tip of the iceberg, and there was so much questionable story elements and possible plot holes and just plain stupid moments that we just have to dedicate an entire section just for them. And I think the first thing I want to start with is probably the most important part about this is the fact that how does Japan react when it comes to this crisis? And I think the way the first 5 episodes especially handle it is really dumb. It's the fact that we need to evacuate as many people as possible. Okay, fine. Okay, and also the fact that, but before that they said that the prime minister said, Japan is not gonna sink entirely. Everyone has time, or it's not like it's gonna sink entirely. But even then, they decide that what we're gonna decide when it comes to evacuation, so that we will not have any unbiased selection. We're gonna choose it completely random. Okay, I get it. Okay, but we're gonna do it like so, that we're gonna use a lottery system, that if your country ID is here, you get to select it. Okay, I get it. But then still people pack there and they go into this really orderly line. Okay, show me your papers. Okay, okay, next one. Instead of, I don't know, okay, let's take as much as possible. Let's take it fast. So we only have like 24 hours before this entire thing goes. So let's go back and forth. But no, okay, let's spend like 8 hours here, taking a few people here and not even filling the ship to its brim, as we saw in that scene.
Yeah.
But there probably was even more room to people, only those that were selected, instead of packing the whole thing as much as possible. That, like, I mean, when it comes to a disaster where a literal island is going to sink, where there's like over 100 million people about to go to the bottom of the sea, and yet they're doing this orderly fashion.
I think that was very illogical and mostly moronic. I think that whole entire scene was just to, was a backdrop, just to give that, daughter a emotional scene where she, oh my God, I cannot go, I can't leave my family behind. That was the whole reason of that, because
her mother has a, heart condition.
Oh, spoiler alert. Who cares? She died. And then, one scene in particular that I feel like, what the hell's going on, was episode 6. The climatic ending to the Cult storyline, or I would say the Cult arc.
Filler arc.
Filler arc, where a shonen protagonist just pull out a katana out of nowhere in the middle of a Mexican standoff over a gold dispute, and we later learned that the gold was just fake.
Yeah, I mean, what exactly was the point of that? I mean, was she trying to scam people? Did she actually have psychic powers? What exactly were they trying to do having this fake vault with fake gold? Did they actually lie about something? Did they have like some sort of government influence that, they were able that, we have this gold, we can use it to buy stocks or something? And why did, those people suddenly start to come when everything was, starting to crumble with the earthquakes and the whole thing was going to the ground? What did they think that they could somehow carry, gold, which I remind you weighs, hundreds of kilograms? Why did, they think that it's important that, let's take this gold even though we might die, it might actually slow us down? I mean, there's so many unanswered questions here, that questionable things, that I couldn't even decide whether, that woman could actually read, dead people or not. That what exactly were they even trying to go with the story's theme? It's like, they're just there.
I mean, the show tried to tease that, with her ability to read or, relay the message from the dead, that, maybe they can use that to listen to the father message. But then it doesn't go anywhere because character was like, oh well, just move on.
Yeah, I mean, the daughter at least tries to, to use it, but she doesn't really get anything, and neither does she pursue it.
Well, she tried to do it, but then she go into this, party where the emo character became a DJ, and then literally 2 minutes after that, she was nearly raped.
Yeah,
for some reason, yeah.
And he's saved by Kite, who was smoking marijuana, he's completely high.
Like, what's the point of with all these tonal shift? Like, it's just filled out of the left field so much. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, character was just nearly raped, and then they just, make it funny that this just happens. I'm so freaking high.
Speaking of rape, one of the character that, best friend girl of the daughter that, this Nanami character, she has like intriguing story arc going on. They try to go and find her parents. That was the whole reason why the family followed her and to go to the West. That they try to find the parents of that girl. In the end, or like have I say halfway point into episode 3, she has this encounter with this rapist, and she kicked his ass. And she was having this badass character development moment where she said I'm gonna save everyone, I'm gonna move on, I'm gonna stay strong and stuff, But then literally 2 minutes in, she afterward, she died randomly from poison out of nowhere. And the dumbest thing about this whole thing is that that poison thing that killed her, it wasn't even mentioned at all afterward in the story.
Yeah, I mean, I do get the fact that they were trying to say that you have to be high in the mountains because in different elevation, and you cannot go down because you die instantly after inhaling because the earthquake brings poison gas from the ground. But the fact that they just continue walking in that, and at some point they just reach this store with the old man, and it's never mentioned how wide this area of poison is, and I refuse to accept the fact that everything they walk from their point on is high elevation, that they were just there. That is like the story forgot that there's poison gas. Why are we this low in the area? That what?
Like it's like she was killed just for shock value and to be replaced by Kite. Like she was just a catalyst to introduce Kite into the story.
Yeah, I can understand that you actually have a lot to say about it because you've alluded to many times that he's like this Jesus, this savior of mankind kind of character. Could you go much more into detail about him?
Like I'm a Gundam fan, so out of all the Gundam protagonists that I've seen, there's this one in particular that strike me as the one most pull protagonist. This Kira Yamato from Gundam Seed and Seed's Destiny. He cannot do anything wrong. He cannot lose. He cannot be killed. Like he's Jesus. Like he's unreachable. And in a sense, Kite here is the same type of character. This one charismatic can't do nothing wrong character. Like Jesus Christ, he can do everything. He can fly the kite.
No pun intended.
He can do martial arts. He can fire guns. He can hacking. He can even drive a complicated submarine tank out of nowhere. And speaking of that submarine tank, how the hell did he manage to find it? And how the hell did he manage to learn how to pilot it? It was so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the fact that, since he was separated from everyone else except with Mr. Onodera, and he was said to be that he's this geologist and a submarine pilot, that he must have known, where that was, and he somehow managed to communicate with eyelids and giving coordinates. But how exactly did he somehow communicate to him that, okay, this is how you use the submarine, which probably takes, years of, training to do, and he just pilots it completely? Because I need to remind you, Mr. Onodera is paraplegic, so he can do nothing. So, but he can just, based on few instructions, it's kind of like, riding the bike. Once you get used to it, it's not that hard like that.
Yeah, and he can achieve, superhuman feat of, swimming while carrying Onodera, through, at least, 1 kilometer of water under, without any air support. Like, how is this? Who is this guy? How is he a human? Like, like he's not like. Are you trying to say that in a realistic survival story like this, that this character exists? No.
Yeah, I need to remind you that ocean is so cold that unless you have a, really heated scuba gear and other things to keep you warm, they probably would have died, having a stroke on their legs when they were, after all, he was carrying Onodera, who was completely limp, and yet he's, not only does he manage to survive, but he even saves Onodera from death by pounding his chest like this. Yeah, and he even has that badass pose that, I am Kite, I never fail at anything, and once he hits his chest, he survives, and
like what do I care about it? Like, and then of course he has this death-defying act at the end of the episode 10 where near the end near the beginning of episode 10 where he tried to tie a balloon up into air and try to fix the signal so that people can be rescued. The show kind of teased that oh my god, he might die. No, bullshit. He didn't die. Actually, he became the savior of Japan because in the ending it is alluded that thanks to his VR technology, which is also bullshit, by the way. How the hell can this robust VR technology exist?
Yeah, I do get the fact that it takes place in 8 years, but the fact that technology would have just suddenly jumped that much, and yeah, it was said that he worked together with Mr. Onodera to preserve the memories of Japan. But that brings up another question. Yeah, I get the fact that they found the data on Mr. Onodera's computer that they broke into. But Mr. Onodera was a geologist. He was studying, the Earth's crust like that. So I can get that they have a whole outline of Japan. But how did he also have, exact details about the buildings and the people who live there, and also
memories?
At least it was implied that there are these stories of people, who were there, and it's also shown on the VR. At least that's the implication that I got from that.
Yeah, and Kai is just the savior of Japan because this one Estonian YouTuber, who bring the people of Japan together. Like, get the hell out here, what is this story? Like, and I think the dumbest stuff at crap in this anime is how every other country just react to how Japan think.
Yeah, first of all, depending on regardless of how many people died, but the fact that there were still survivors, somehow a countries like Russia has, room there for all those, and even happily, oh, don't worry, everyone is welcome here, we're totally not gonna enslave you or force you to do our bidding like that. And not to mention when the studies released that the Japan will return one day, there is this, really pretentious line that every country in the world, Russia, China, USA, come to work together to help us rebuild the lost civilization of Japan, and even willing to give all its lost territory back to them and not take them at all, because that's totally how that actually would go in real life. That Russia and China, the prime examples of humanitarianism, would totally, give everything to Japan and even give money and help.
Yeah. And all of that dumbness is way more infuriating because in actually doing research for this anime, we actually watched the 1973 adaptation of the novel, the movie.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, to understand why this anime is so freaking terrible. Japan Sinks 2020 was actually based on the book called Japan Sinks, without any year added to its title. It was released 1973, and coincidentally a movie adaptation of it by Toho, who is most famous about their Godzilla films, or tokusatsu movies. Is that the right term for disaster movies?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The book was about the political climate at the time, but it also had these three main characters, one of them who appears actually as one of the main characters called Onodera Toshio. He's the submarine pilot who is working together with Dr. Tado Koro.
Yeah,
I finally got that correct. And they were studying, this Earth's crust under Japan Sea, and discovered, about what was going to happen, just like in Japan Sinks 2020. And then there was Prime Minister, who, while in the anime, was shown a few times in news clips talking, how, Japan is not going to sink or anything. This stereotypical, unresponsible, politician. Here, he's actually one of the major characters, this inexperienced politician who is thrown this, weight of Japan on his shoulders, how to help people through this crisis, and how he actually has to negotiate with other countries that who are going to help them and accept their people, since they have to evacuate to Japan. And it kind of deals with this climate with politics that was at the time. I mean, Soviet Union was still there, Korea was united, and Vietnam War was still going on. Many other political conflicts, were going on, which is actually shown brilliantly with this sort of a slide reel. And the way they handle it, that how they're going through these political negotiations, that they're going in detail. That how exactly are we going to have enough room here? What exactly can you give us in return, and like that? But it's also a study about the nationalism and also different kind of unity, not the pretentious one, that the anime has with the Olympics. It's about the how dependent the Japanese people are to their tradition-based culture. How exactly are they going to adapt, when they're forced, to leave their home, and also the differences of cultures, and and how it affects, the way of life and like that. And I mean, when we first started watching this movie, we didn't exactly expect it to be any good, since we thought that the original story probably wasn't any good, but it was surprisingly cool. I mean, not just the fact that Segata Sanshiro is, plays Onodera. I mean, sorry, I can't remember the actor's name, but that's what he's known for. I mean, he was also the first Kamen Rider. So
yes,
awesome.
It was so cool and awesome how these characters react to this situation. Like, you can see their struggle and their, inner turmoil, especially the Prime Minister, this, like you said, very inexperienced and trying to, do the best for his people. Like, you can see that, they are trying to overcome this situation. And like you said, the story isn't even trying to be like a survivor story. It's just a case study about, how people do in this type of situation. It's a study about society and nationalism. And I think, it doesn't matter which political climate, it is. It doesn't matter if it was 1973. It doesn't matter if it was 2020. If they would have adapted the same story completely like that into this anime, it would have made for a much better anime and viewing experience. I mean, the character in the movie was so charming, especially Segata Sanshiro character.
Yeah, Onodera.
Yeah, I mean, he has so much swag, smoking a cigar, sleeping with women, and
having sex on the beach.
Yeah, and then showing his muscular chiseled body, but at the same time he also has this moment where he's vulnerable, and he's like, oh my god, please, Japanese people, please, don't survive, move on and shit.
But we'll go into that more detail, because we were thinking of actually reviewing this movie, which will probably come out next Sunday.
Yeah, as an omake episode. So you can see how frustrating it is that they reduce such a deep character. Well, I wouldn't say deep, deep, but they would reduce that character from the movie into this mute paraplegic who does nothing besides tapping on his wall and doing Morse code and stuff. It was insulting.
Yeah, and try to plot along that, if only the story of Japan Sinks 2020 would have just stick with the survival individual survivor story, and would have not had anything to do with the original characters or the plot, and just had its own story and characters, maybe it actually would have worked a bit better. But the fact that they bring it up is not only half-baked from the book, but it's also downright insulting due to how overly simplistic it makes some of the explanations, like how, especially with that forced happy ending that, Japan, is coming back and like that. Yeah. But here, they're forced to deal with the new situation in the movie and the book, that Japan is not coming back, and they have to readjust to their new life, outside of Japan and their comfort of their home.
Yeah, it was such a good movie, and we recommend watching it instead of watching this show.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So let's go to the final conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though we don't really need one.
Yeah. Conclusion. Japan Sinks 2020 isn't as boring as some of the other titles we've seen. I mean, we've seen Inspector, but it might actually be the worst anime we've covered so far on this show, because of how downright insulting it is to the original source material, how so much missed potential there was, and the fact that they tried to mix the original story and characters with the original book instead of just sticking to the original stick. While it was entertaining on some part, both intentionally, very little, but and unintentionally, but it just makes us so angry that we never want to see it again in any point.
The more that I think or try to remember some dumb scene about this anime, the more I feel like I'm gonna have a stroke.
What are you talking about? Such an asshole!
This is a waste of people's talent. This is a waste of people's time. Like, you know, the production team behind this should feel ashamed that they even try to come up with story that your 5 years old could have wrote. Like, I think if it would stick to the survival aspect,
like I said,
it would have been a decent story, or if it would adapt completely the book story, just like how they did with Devilman Crybaby, and with some extra abridged stuff going on, it would have been much better anime. But overall,
any idea would have been better than this.
Yeah, this is a mess of an anime, and I feel so bad after watching it. That I don't feel like
I just feel like bashing my head against the wall for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Next up, we'll be talking about School Life, a really cutesy anime about girls who are trying to live their life to the fullest with nothing going wrong with them, and just being really wholesome and really fun anime. But but we'll see you on the part 2, and also right after these messages. Thank you for watching part 1 of our discussion. If you're interested of the other anime we talked about, please click the link for part 2, which also includes our recommendations. I'm Giman, and I'll see you soon enough. To be continued in part 2!